Marymounts. I am wearing glasses today, and the reason I'm wearing glasses is I'm getting some really bad headaches at the moment, and I suspect that's due to the fact that I'm not wearing my glasses as much as I should. Now, I will remind you that the doggies and the kitty cats are running around the house. The dogs have only just been let in the house, so you're probably going to see more of Charlie because she's going to want to go up and down the stairs and look around, so she tends to be a little bit more of an active beagle, but our other little beagle is a little bit older and she's just a little bit more chilled. Today features Snow White. So there is a reason behind. So there's three things about me that you should always know. I am an avid Snoopy fan. Anything Snoopy, I'm pretty much sold. I will walk in and I'll be like, yep. There is a t-shirt in Kmart at the moment that I am resisting because I'm like, no, you have enough Peanuts t-shirts. I think I need another one. My second thing is all things Disney. Anything Disney related, I'm also sold on. I won't buy it, but I absolutely love it. And for our honeymoon, we are off to Japan, where I am more than excited to be going to Disneyland in Japan. But the reason for Snow White is, one, she was the only Disney princess when I grew up that had dark hair. So it just sort of made sense that I would love her a little bit more. What I didn't realize at the time was she is also the first Disney princess. So that was kind of cool. So that'll give you my favorite dwarf by far is Doc. However, I can relate to Grumpy and I can very much relate to moments of Dopey. So, and the third thing you should know is that I am an advocate for everyone who wants to do something with their life. If you want to go and start a podcast, if you want to go and live your life overseas, I will be your biggest supporter. I think that following your dreams and doing things that make you happy are by far anything that is far more important than ways out. I am feeling like that's not going to be, everyone else is going to judge me for that. I feel like the thing that I have learnt in my 40s is you get one life, and do with it what's going to make you happy, because you can't take it with you and you've got to live your life to what you want, because no one else is actually going to be able to run your life for you. So there's my little 10 cents for today, guys. So I thought I'd fill you in. I have my 7-Eleven coffee. And yes, you can judge me all you like. I'm a Melbourneite who drinks 7-Eleven coffee. It is cheap. It is not bad. And $6, when I pay $6 for a coffee, more than often, I'm disappointed at the moment. So it's not going to happen. Okay, so guys, welcome back to anyone who is recurring on this channel, but welcome to anyone who is new to this channel or to the podcast. Now, this podcast covers true crime cases that may not be suitable for young listeners. There may be graphic and violent content, so listener and viewer discretion is advised. Now, we are back for another episode 33, guys. I hope you enjoyed the episode on the toolbox killers. I have a doozy of an episode with this one, though. I was chatting with my mum about this episode. So I was toying between two serial killers. Now, the Long Island serial killer and the medical serial killer. My mum said that she likes anything in the medical industry. So that is why I decided to pick this particular serial killer. So you have my mum to thank for this. Going back to what I said before, my mum is my biggest advocate. She is absolutely fabulous. My partner is also my biggest advocate, but I think that my mum is the best person I've ever met. She watches my episodes religiously, and I love her for it. So you have her to thank for today's episode. Our state is Kentucky, and our serial killer today is Donald Harvey. Now, he was otherwise known as the Angel of Death. Now, whilst this name is often attributed to a doctor who was a Nazi, this Angel of Death is just as bad as this one. He would prey predominantly on the elderly. Sometimes there were younger victims who happened to be in homes, but instead of being an aid and assisting and helping them and, just being a general nurse's aide, he would end up killing them. Now, according to Donald, though, Some of them would be mercy killings. I don't know if this is true, but I would pray for me personally that someone would show mercy if I was a vegetable. I don't want to continue being that person. You see how I am on this podcast, guys. I am bubbly. I'm alive. I do not want to be sitting in a bed under any circumstances. So I can somewhat relate to if he did do mercy killings, but I doubt he actually did mercy killings, as I think he actually got quite a thrill out of killing his victims. So let's get started on episode 33, guys. As always, we're going to start at the beginning. Now, he was born on April 15th, one day after my birthday, I don't like that, in 1952. He was the eldest of 3 siblings, and at 6 months old, he was actually dropped on his head by his dad, which would end up leaving his soft spot unclosed. Despite their really poor relationship, Harvey's parents, they tended to be quite nurturing towards their kids. He would also suffer, though, another injury when he was later in his childhood when he fell off a truck. Now, Donald Harvey had quite a tragic childhood. In the grand scheme of things, you would not wish this upon your worst enemy, what he experienced. This is not an excuse for his behaviour in any way, shape or form, guys. But this guy, he actually had a pretty rough one. His uncle Wayne was known to have actually sexually assaulted him whenever he would visit his grandma's house. It would include just general things that children should not be exposed to. He was also paid to allow a neighbour of his, apparently, to sexually abuse him. In school, though, he was described as a teacher's pet, got really good grades, but he was very quiet and fairly antisocial, and he was bullied. So, again, guys, we're sort of seeing a little bit of a pattern with some of those serial killers. His former classmates would describe him as a loner and a massive teacher's pet. He rarely participated in any kind of extracurricular activities. He would read books, he'd think about his future, he'd graduate from elementary school, and he'd enroll in Boonville High School in 1968. He earned really good grades, though. He earned like A's and B's in most of his classes and very minimal effort, according to most people. But he was just really disengaged from anybody, and he ended up dropping out. He really didn't have any specific future. He didn't have any plans for his future. He didn't have any goals. So he decided to move to Cincinnati, Ohio, and that was where he found a job at a local factory. In 1970, the work slowed down, though, at the plant, and he was eventually laid off. His mother called him, though, a few days later and actually requested that he travel to Kentucky to visit his grandfather. Now, he'd been recently hospitalised. He agreed to do this and went off to the Marymount Hospital in London, Kentucky. This trip would mark the start of him becoming a serial killer that terrorised nursing homes and hospitals and just victims in general. In his personal life, though, he had another sexual encounter, I guess we'd call it, and he began a relationship with someone by the name of James, but he was also raped apparently by his roommate. Now, all of these, I want to say these are alleged, so I don't want to say that they are for sure true, but it does seem that the predators he was an easy mark for these predators if this was the case. Now, in Kentucky, he spent much of his time at the Marymont Hospital, and he became really well liked by the nuns. One nun actually ended up offering him a job as an orderly, which he happily accepted because he's unemployed and he's bored. So despite lacking any type of medical training, his duties included changing bedpans, inserting catheters, and distributing medications. Now, it seems like a bit like that they were desperate for someone to possibly assist in the hospital, so maybe that's why they got him to do things that perhaps he was not medically trained for. I don't really know, but yep. So his first few weeks at the hospital, they're fairly uneventful, but something seemed to just snap in him. To this day, the criminologists are unable to explain what really brought out this type of murderous tendencies that basically became like age of 18. It's not whether, I'm wondering whether it was because he was unable to cope with the pain and everything around him, or he just really enjoyed watching his victims die. There's no real understanding of who he was. So according to later confessions though, right, he considered himself an angel of death or a mercy killer. It seems like his first murder, though, sort of contradicts that. So let's get to that. I don't know how it happens, but we actually see it quite a fair bit on my podcasts. Something just seems to snap inside these serial killers. They are no longer able to hold it in. I don't know if something in their brain just goes bang, it seems to happen with a lot of them. But given what Donald had gone through in such a small amount of time, like he's only 18 at this stage, guys, I can sort of see why he would have snapped. Not why he would have murdered, but definitely why he snapped. I'm not making any type of excuses for him. But I'm just trying to sort of make sense out of some of this madness, right? And it's really hard to know if this is true, but according to his confession, he actually murdered over 70 people. He's eventually, I think there's 47 known victims. So unfortunately, given their age and just when this happened, there's not too much information about the victims this time, guys. What I do know, I'll definitely share with you, but I don't know too much. He killed people for over 17 years before he was actually caught. Not that this surprises me, though. BTK and the Golden State Killer killed for over, and the Green River Killer, which, by the way, guys, I've done one on BTK and the Green River. I just haven't done one on the Golden State Killer. They killed for over 20 years before being caught. So it does still boggle my mind, though. What I will say before I start discussing the victims is we just really, truly never know what's going on inside another human being. What I can say, though, from everything I'm reading, or obviously doing a lot of my research, I think some people are just born evil. I will be honest. But over a 10-month period while he worked at the Marymount hospital, he'd kill over a dozen victims. Now, this podcast is going to feel a little bit like a timeline of the victims, but a lot of the research is sort of written that way. So I'll see how I go. His first murder would obviously be at the ripe age of 18 years old, which boggles my mind because who in God's name thinks about murdering at that age? But during an evening shift, just months after starting at the hospital, he commits his first murder. But in a 1997 interview with the Cincinnati Post, he said when he walked into a private room to check on a stroke victim, the patient rubbed feces in his face. He became really angry and he lost control. The next thing I knew, I'd smothered him. It was like the last straw. I just lost it. I went in to help the man and he just wanted to rub it in my face. Now, he would end up cleaning up this patient and hopped into a shower and had a shower before he even notified one of the nurses. No one's even questioned this. The next day, or at least, I can't get the timeline quite right on this one. He accidentally killed another man by the name of James Tyree when he gave him the wrong catheter. But apparently he held him down until he vomited blood and died. Now, his first apparent mercy killing would be Elizabeth Wyatt. Now, according to him, she was praying to die. She was telling him she wanted to die. So actually he turned on her oxygen supply really low in order to kill her. 4 hours later, a nurse would find her dead. So this one, I sort of understand. If someone is telling you that they want to die, and if the account is accurate and all those things, then I definitely do understand it. But given when we find out a little bit later in the podcast, guys, he's not a good guy. He's not a mercy killer. I think, no. Okay, so the next one is just vile, in my opinion. He killed Eugene McQueen by turning him on his stomach when he knew he wasn't supposed to. He drowned in his own fluids. Donald Harvey would end up informing the nurse that McQueen actually looked really awful, and she said for him to continue monitoring him and to give him a bath. He proceeded to bathe him after he was dead in order to cover up any kind of suspicion. This was actually apparently covered up by the hospital. So for as long as he worked at Marymont, the doctors and nurses would actually tease him for bathing a dead man. His next victim was Harvey Williams, and that was apparently an accident which involved a faulty gas tank. Harvey Williams would actually go into cardiac arrest and die. Now, our next victim, Ben Gilbert, would be the first of the victims that would be considered what I would say premeditation. Ben had actually knocked Donald out unconscious, and it was with a urinal, and he poured the contents of the urinal onto Donald, claiming that he thought he was a burglar. He would end up retaliating by using the wrong type of catheter. He used a female-sized 20 catheter when he should have used a smaller 18 for men. He then straightened out a coat hanger and shoved the wire through the catheter about 2 feet, which would end up puncturing his bladder and bowel. Obviously, he went into instant shock and he would break out into a cold sweat and he would end up falling into a coma. He ended up disposing of the catheter that he used. Ben would die 4 days later. So I've decided, guys, rather than actually continuing a timeline of all of his murders, I might just go through the victims at the end. I want to be clear, though. I'm not trying to rush. It just feels like all I'm doing is giving a timeline of murders. So it just feels to me, it doesn't feel like a normal podcast like I would do. But I'll definitely go through all of the victims so that we can, definitely hear their names and know who they were. So what I am going to say is it was under 12 months, it was 10 months or so of killing patients at Marymount Hospital. He would end up actually being arrested for burglary in March 1971. He was babbling incoherently, apparently, during questioning, and he would say that he heard about the murders and what he'd done. The officers, unfortunately, they couldn't find any evidence to support his claims or charge him. He ended up pleading guilty to petty theft and ended up paying a fine. He wanted to have a bit of a change, so he actually enlisted in the United States Air Force. Serves less than a year in the Air Force before he receives a general discharge in March 1972. His records list, though, is unspecified grounds for his discharge, though there were rumours that his superiors had learned of his confessions to the police and preferred to sort of not be affiliated with someone like that. After his release, he experienced several episodes of depression. In 1972, in July, he actually admitted himself to the Veterans Administration Medical Center in Lexington, Kentucky. Now, during this time, I will say, guys, there was multiple attempts for him to commit suicide. So he is not in a good way at all. He would actually end up staying in the mental ward till the end of August and would readmit himself again a couple of weeks later. This was following a suicide attempt at the hospital. He was restrained and he actually received 21 electric shock therapy treatments over a several-week period. Now, on October 17th in 1972, he was released from the hospital. His mum heavily criticised the hospital for discharging her son, believing that he'd shown no signs of significant improvement. So it's already determined pretty quickly, guys, that he's not in a good way. He's murdered people. He's already wanting to commit suicide. So, the hospital system definitely failed him in that respect, I think, and I think that he needed some actual help. He would spend the next couple of months getting his life back on track. He was working as a part-time nurse's aide at the Cardinal Hill Hospital, and later he would end up working at the Good Samaritan Hospital in Lexington. By August 1974, he'd become a telephone operator, then a clerk at the St. Luke's Hospital in Fort Thomas in Kentucky. During this time, he's managed to control his murderous tendencies and his urges to kill. I think that's because he probably didn't have the exposure to the patients that he had previously at Marymount. And that would explain it. And maybe why he kept switching jobs was because he wanted access to the patients. In September 1975, he relocated to Cincinnati, Ohio. And within weeks, he'd managed to secure himself a night shift position at the Cincinnati VA Medical Hospital. His responsibilities varied. They include things like a nursing assistant, housekeeping, cardiac cauterization, and autopsy assistance. He worked during the night with minimal supervision, and he had access to a lot of areas in the hospital. Over the next 10 years, he would murder at least 15 patients while working at this hospital. He kept a precise diary of his crimes and took notes on each of his victims. He would detail in this diary how he actually murdered his victims. It was various ways to kill them: pressing a plastic bag, a wet towel over their mouth, rat poison using arsenic, cyanide. Apparently he injected cyanide into one of the patient's buttocks. All the while he's committing these, he's like almost refining his techniques. He's studying medical journals and learning how to conceal his crimes. Over the years, apparently he amassed 30 pounds of cyanide, which he'd slowly stolen from the hospital, and he would keep it at his home for safekeeping. He would often mix a vial of cyanide or arsenic at home and then bring it into work. And when no one was around, he would slip it into the mixture of like a victim's food, or he'd pour it directly, or he'd like syringe it into their gastric tube. Just vile. So in the 1980s, he's got various ways of killings now. He's moved in with his boyfriend at this stage. I believe it was Carl. Now, this was the level of issues that he had. He slowly began giving his partner doses of arsenic because he thought he was cheating on him. So what would happen was Carl would get so sick that he wouldn't be able to leave the apartment, so he wouldn't be able to cheat on him. He would just, the level of insanity that he had, he apparently did it to a fellow neighbor, a female neighbor. He laced one of her best, one of her drinks with something because he'd had a fight with her. Another neighbor wasn't so lucky. Now, this one's an unknown. I don't know. It's Helen Metzger. He put arsenic in one of her pies, and apparently she later died in the hospital. There was no confirm with that, I believe. In April 1983, though, he had a bit of a fight with Carl's parents, and he began to poison them with arsenic. Carl's father would end up suffering a stroke and was admitted to the Providence Hospital. It was there that he ended up visiting him and placed arsenic in his pudding before leaving. And Carl's father would end up dying that night. He was just a vile human being. So his boyfriend, Carl, ends up breaking it off with him and asked him to move out. He's furious over this rejection and would spend the next 2 years trying to kill him. At one point, he even just tried to kill a female friend of Carl's as a way to get some more revenge. It's just vile. Now, he ends up being fired from the VA hospital for having a gun in his gym bag, and that's against their policies. They would end up finding a liver specimen in like wax in his locker. This ended up being removed from his record, which that's just strange to me because he ends up starting a new job at the Daniel Drake Memorial in Cincinnati. No suspicions were raised for leaving his previous jobs. This is where we see a ramp up on the murders, very similar to what we saw at Marymount, which we're going to definitely hear about later in the podcast. Now, he was hired part-time and unaware of all of his past incidents. They actually praised him. They really liked him at this hospital. He earns himself a full-time position and resumed his killing routine. Over the next 13 months, apparently he murdered 23 patients. He would disconnect their life support machines. He would inject air into their veins, suffocation, injections of arsenic, cyanide, just various medical ways. But it's his last known victim, John Powell, that would be his undoing. And really, Thank God for that, because this man had terrorized the medical community for over 15 years. And I don't think he would have stopped. Like, I genuinely believe that, guys. Authorities became really suspicious of him in 1997 with John Powell. Now, 1987, a recovering comatose patient who had actually died. Now, during the autopsy, an assistant coroner detected the smell, it's a really faint smell of almonds, which actually indicates cyanide. With no evidence or motive linking Powell's friends or family, they focused on employees at the hospital. The list was really short, and upon learning Donald Harvey's nickname, Angel of Death, due to his frequent presence at deaths, they centered their investigation around him. So on August 11th in 1987, he confesses to the crimes to 33 murders over 17 years. He would end up later increase that number to over 70. Investigators doubt these figures, but they assessed his mental state before considering his claims. Now, a spokesman for the Cincinnati's prosecutor's office described the situation to the Cincinnati Post. This man is sane, competent, but is a compulsive killer. He builds up tension in his body, and then he ends up killing people. So on August 18th in 1987, he pled guilty to 24 counts of attempted murder and 24 counts of aggravated murder, 4 counts to attempted murder, and 1 count to felonious assault. 4 days later, a 25th guilty plea in four consecutive 20 years to life sentences. He was also fined $270,000. He was indicted in Kentucky in September 1987. He would end up confessing to 12 murders at Marymount Hospital. In November, he pled guilty and received 8 life terms plus 20 years. So by February 1988, he pled guilty to 3 more Cincinnati homicides and 3 attempted murders, earning an additional 3 life sentences plus 7 to 25 years. The investigation into other deaths concluded 2 years later. They were due to insufficient evidence, so they were unable to actually convict him for those. In a 1991 interview with a reporter from the Columbus Dispatch, Donald Harvey gave a rare glimpse into his mindset. So the question was, why do you kill? Well, people controlled me for 18 years, and then I controlled my own destiny. I controlled other people's lives, whether they lived or died. I had the power to control. What right did you have to decide that? After I didn't get caught in the first 15, I thought it was my right. I appointed myself judge, prosecutor, and jury. So I played God. So in July 2001, the Associated Press printed an article listing the worst serial killers in the United States. Donald Harvey was rated number 1. He's followed by John Wayne Gacy, Patrick Kearney, Bruce Davis, and Dean Carell. Now, this is the part that I struggle with, okay? Because in March 2017, it was reported that Donald Harvey had been found in his cell severely beaten. He died on March 30th in 2017. On May 3rd, 2019, a fellow inmate by the name of James Elliott was charged with aggravated murder and other charges relating to Donald Harvey. He ended up being sentenced to 25 years to life after pleading guilty for killing Harvey. The sentence was originally ordered to run consecutively to his other sentences, but was later changed to concurrently. It would end up making him eligible for parole at the age of 71. So I don't necessarily agree with beating a man to death because he's a vile human being. I understand it, but I don't have to like it. And it happened with Jeffrey Dahmer. And it's just, for me, I don't think it's not great for the victims, right? This person is no longer in the world, but I don't think it's an easy thing for victims to accept that they don't get to watch that person rot in jail. That's my personal belief, guys. So please don't come for me on that, but that's my personal belief. But now I'm actually going to go through the timeline of the victims. So I've got Logan Evans is first. This is in May 1970, and this was intentional, not premeditated, but he was suffocated and smothered with a pillow and a plastic bag. Then we've got James Tyree. He was 69. This is in Kentucky. Apparently, he accidentally gave James Tyree the wrong catheter, which caused him to vomit blood and die. Then we've got Elizabeth Wyatt. That was intentional, not premeditated. He cut off her oxygen supply, and he did this because she had requested it. That's according to him. That's not according to anybody else. Then we've got Eugene McQueen. This is in July 1970. This is intentional, not premeditated. It was drowning, turned over on his back, causing him to drown in his own fluids. Then we've got Harvey Williams. Now, this was our very first victim that was, I believe, and what has been reported as premeditated. No, sorry, not this one. It was Ben Gilbert that was. So Harvey Williams was a cardiac arrest. He was given a faulty oxygen tank. Then we've got Ben Gilbert. Now, Ben Gilbert apparently threw feces at him. No, apparently he threw a urinal on him and poured urine on him because he thought he was a burglar. It was an organ infection, though, because he'd knocked Harvey out with a urinal. So he gave him a catheter that was too large, then put in a straightened coat hanger and punctured the urethra, the bowel, and the bladder. So he went into instant shock, where he would end up dying 4 days later. Then we've got Maud Nichols. Now, she is also in Kentucky, cardiac arrest, and she was also given a faulty oxygen tank. Then we have William Bowling in August 1970, and heart attack. He actually ended up cutting off his oxygen supply. Then we have Viola Wyan. And this apparently was premeditated. She was suffocated, attempted to kill her by smothering her with a pillow and a plastic bag. He was actually interrupted, but he later killed her by giving her a faulty oxygen tank. Then we've got Margaret Harrison. This is still in Kentucky, guys. He gave her a drug overdosed her on Demerol, codeine, and morphine. We've got Sam Carroll in January 6th, 1971. This was suffocation, ended up giving this one a faulty oxygen tank. Then we've got Maggie Rowlands on January 15th, 1971. He would suffocate her. She was smothered with a pillow and a plastic bag between it and her face. Then you've got Silas Butner, suffocated and given a faulty oxygen tank. John V. Coombs. So this is still in Kentucky, guys. This is January 26th in 1971. Suffocated. He attempted to smother him with a plastic bag, but instead had to give him a faulty gas tank. You've got Milton Sasser, March 14th in 1971. This was a drug overdose, overdosed him on morphine. Then you've got Helen Metzger. This is Ohio, 1983. After an argument with Donald Harvey, Helen was given arsenic after a tracheotomy and causing paralysis and hemorrhaging. Then you've got Henry Howler, who was Carl's father. That was the boyfriend. So that's the boyfriend's father. Stroke and kidney failure, poisoned with arsenic. Then you've got Howard Vetter. We don't have any actual specified date on this one. This was a heart attack, drank alcohol that Donald Harvey had actually poisoned. Then you've got Hiram Prophet, which is on September 19th in 1984. This was a drug overdosed him on heparin. James Peluso, November 9th, 1984, cardiac arrest. He was poisoned with arsenic, and apparently he was one of Donald's ex-lovers. Then you've got Edward Wilson. He was poisoned with arsenic. He died 5 days after he'd actually been poisoned. Then you've got Nathaniel Watson. April 8th in 1986, he was smothered with a wet plastic garbage liner, and this was unsuccessfully attempted several times prior to this. Leon Nelson, April 14th, this is terrible, that's my birthday, April 14th, 1986, he was smothered with a wet plastic garbage bag liner. Virgil Weddle, April 19th, 5 days later. God, he was just on a rampage. He was given a heart attack, poisoned with rat poison in his pudding. Now, I'm not sure how to say this last name, so I do apologise. Lawrence Burnson, he was poisoned repeatedly with rat poison. He would die 3 days later. Then you've got Doris Nelling. She is on May 2nd, 1986. She's poisoned with cyanide in her apple juice. So you're sort of seeing a pattern, guys. If they're not suffocated, they're poisoned or they're given faulty gas tanks. It's very, very similar. So you've got Willie Johnson. She was attempted to poison with arsenic repeatedly. Edward Shrubus, it's up on the screen, guys. Poisoned with arsenic in his soup. And then you've got Robert Crockett in June 29th, 1986. He's poisoned with cyanide in his IV. That would be a horrific way to go in poisoned in your IV. And you've got Donald Barney. He's poisoning. He's also fed cyanide through a feeding tube and injected into his bum. James T. Woods in July 1986, poisoning with cyanide through his gastric tube. He is just finding absolutely appalling and painful ways to hurt people. He is an absolutely vile individual. We've got Ernst Frey. He was poisoned with arsenic through his gastric tube as well. Then you've got Milton Cantor. This is in August 1986. He was poisoned through cyanide through his nasal tube. My God, I am absolutely disgusted. You've got Roger Evans in September 1986. He was poisoned through cyanide through his gastric tube as well. Then you've got Claiborne Kendrick. It's September 20th, 1986. He was poisoned through cyanide through his gastric tube and an injection into his testes. He's really escalating at this stage, guys, on the pain threshold on what he wants to put his victims through. Then you've got Albert, I'm not even going to attempt to say that. It's up on the screen. Poisoned with cyanide dissolved in a cup of his water. Then you've got William Collins. He was poisoned through cyanide in his orange juice. You've got Henry Cody in November 4th, 1986. He was poisoned with cyanide dissolved in water through his gastric tube. You've got Mose Thompson. He's only 65. November 22nd in 1986. He's poisoned with cyanide through his nasal tube. Otis Day. Now, this is on December 9th, 1986. He's poisoned with a cyanide solution. You're just hearing all of this, guys, and it's just like reading it. It just makes me feel sick inside. We've got Cleo Fish next. She's poisoned with cyanide in her cranberry juice and removed a lock of her hair post-mortem and actually ended up burning it. Our next victim is the first for 1987. It's Leo Parker, and he was poisoned with cyanide in his feeding bag. You've got Margaret Kukro. This one was premeditated as well because she's poisoned with cyanide through her orange juice. You've got Stella Lemon. Now, she's in March 16th, 1987. She was poisoned with a cyanide solution as well. Our next victim is Joseph Pike. He's also in Ohio. Same, so at this point, sometime in March, poisoned with detatol. You've got Hilda Leitz in March as well in 1987, poisoned with detatol in her G-tube with her orange juice as well. You've got John Powell, also in March. He was poisoned with cyanide in his gastric feeding tube. So that was the last of our victims. As you can see, this angel of death was just vile. Absolutely vile, guys. I cannot say enough that this appalls me, that this is what elderly, or it doesn't matter whether you're elderly, it doesn't matter who you are. You were traumatized by this man, and I'm so glad that this world is a better place because he is not in it. Thank you all so much for listening to this week's episode. If you like this podcast, please hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button if you like this video. If you haven't had a chance to watch all my other episodes, go back and watch them. I hope you have a fabulous weekend, my peanuts, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye, guys.